Good morning. We're here today for another Red Dane top tip. We want to look at how to manage your M.A.R.S pen and rear your calves in the best possible way, or actually in the Red Dane way. So here we are this morning. It's feeding time at the calves, and you can see they're all ready, all alert, bright and strong, doing really well, and excited because the milk is about to arrive. Here we've got about 120 calves in 12 M.A.R.S pens, and we'll have the three people should have them fed in about half an hour. So as you see, they're arriving with the milk bar feeders and the milk, and let's go and have a closer look at the process to get the milk to the calves in the right way. Okay, so the first thing that is very important is that everybody is clean and that they're sanitized. You'll see the guys are wearing gloves. Over here they're sanitizing their hands with a sanitizing liquid. The last thing we want to do is bring bacteria and diseases to our calves. So we like the system because we can keep the calves in a field away from the other animals, and also we can change field whenever we want to if we feel there's a build-up of a disease or bacteria here. So over here, Mercy's putting in the milk bar feeder, and the nice thing with the milk bar feeder is you've got the easy lock system, and what's very important is that you lock it into the there you go. Very important that we lock it into this gap here so that the calves don't push it around. And you can see the calves are very excited. It's fine, let them start sucking, but the milk will be put in very, very shortly. For normal sized dairy calves, we like to give them 3 liters in the morning and 3 liters again in the afternoon. And it's critical that the milk's at the right temperature. You want it at body temperature, 37 degrees, and that makes sure that the calves digest it well and they don't get scours. It can be a challenge. You need a lot of hot water to get your milk up to the right temperature. Another option is to use a milk replacer, but again you need a lot of hot water to mix in it, and the mixing of it's very important. Here today we're using normal fresh milk. As you can see, it's very easy. The calves are drinking in a natural way as they would do from their mother. The teat here needs to be 60 centimeters above the ground, no more than that, because we want the calf head to be straight, as you see here. What that does is it opens the esophageal groove so that the milk goes into the stomach, the true stomach, where you need it digested, not into the rumen, where it would then cause problems and start curdling and not digesting properly. The other thing that you might be able to see is the saliva of the calves dribbling down the bottom. So that's why you want your calves drinking from teats, so that they create enough saliva to help with the digestion. The saliva has the enzymes that are needed and natural antibiotic which protects the calves against any possible illnesses. So far better than a bucket where they'll just be gulping it, and that then causes can cause stomach upsets because they don't have the enzymes to digest it. The other thing is, because you're getting the natural digestion with the teats, the calves are growing better. We reckon about 20% better growth rate from a calf drinking out of a teat, a good milk bar teat, than from a bucket. It's the other critical thing is that we call it the follow the teat system, or milk bar call it the follow the teat system. With each batch of calves has its own feeder that's numbered, and when we start this group, we put on new teats. For this, the calves stay in here for 60 days. After 60 days, we throw those teats out and put in a new batch of teats for the new calves. If your teats are dribbling constantly, they need to be changed. If you've got a system where you're using one feeder for several pens and you've lost track of how long they've had them, if they're dribbling, you need to change them. A couple of drops is okay, but a dribble is not. So as you can see here, the batch of calves are all getting fed. they're all getting on with it. No need to hold them or assist them. They can work it out for themselves because it's so natural. What's very important with milk bar feeders or any teat feeders is that you let the calves suck until they're satisfied. Don't worry about them sucking a bit long and sucking in air. There's no harm done. As you can see here, they're starting to lose interest. The milk is finished, and they give them their time to realize it's finished and to walk away. You'll see them later start going to eat and so on. But the worst thing you can do is pull out the feeder before they're finished. They'll then be desperate for something else to suck, and you can get cross-cycling problems. But if you leave them to be satisfied, you won't have any problems at all. And another thing that we find really helpful is this is actually a Braden feed bottle, which we put in with a teat. So you want the calves getting onto dry food as soon as possible. And we find with this teat here, they'll come and play, and as you can see, they'll get a mouthful of food, which gives them the taste for it and gets them onto food as soon as possible. This is just a taster. In the troughs behind me, you'll see that we actually have plenty of food available all the time. We have food available to them from day 4 as soon as we move them into these pens. The other thing here is you have the option of using a clean water system, which we think is really important. We just fill this about half full, and that'll last them for a couple of days, and the water will never get dirty and never get contaminated. The problem with an open water system is you can get fecal contamination or other things falling in it, which would then cause that to spread to all the calves. So that's a pretty handy option. That clean water for the calves is essential. They can easily get dehydrated and cause other problems, and it'll limit the intake of dry food if they don't have access to nice, clean, cool water. Another really important part of managing your M.A.R.S pen is that you get your ventilation right. So these 3 sails or 3 tarpaulins that we have on here are very important to use them correctly. As you can see, it's pretty cool now at this time of year, so we've got it all closed up at night to make sure they've got a nice little cave where they can go and lie together. As a group, they'll keep each other warm, which is one of the big advantages over having calves on their own, where they can really catch a chill. So in the morning, obviously it's going to get warm with the sun up. What we do is we just lift this, unclip the tarpaulin and lift them up so that you can get good ventilation going through the pen. Something like that's fine, so that the air passes through, but we still have shade from either side. Positioning is pretty important. You want to make sure that where the sun comes from, you've got a shade on there, so that they're not baked in the sun all day. They can actually hide away and get some nice shade, but still get flow coming through. This is one of the great things about group rearing as well, is you see they tend to teach each other. So one wants to eat, the others come along, and often you'll get the whole group coming and eating at once. Whereas in individual pens, you've got to actually try and force them and teach them to do these things, because there's always there's some that just don't get it, and that requires a lot of time and a lot of management. Whereas here, you see them all coming now as a group. The ones decided to eat, so they all want to come and have a munch, and you tend to get better intakes and better growth rates. Talking about growth rates, as farmers, it's essential that we monitor our growth rates from the first few weeks. We want to make sure that the minimum gaining of, let's say a minimum of 500, but really your target is 600 to 700 grams per day for this period during the 2 months that they're getting milk and they're in the M.A.R.S pen. The effect of that on the animal's production when she calves down at 2 years are massive. They say that the way that the calf's grown and been looked after in the first 3 months will have a significant impact on her yield as a cow. So if you don't know what your calves are growing, make sure you don't know how fast they're growing. Make sure you start weighing them today, so that you can monitor that you're getting your 600 grams, because without that, you're going to be rearing heifers to become cows that'll never produce what you wanted. So it's very important to get the balance, the amount of food in here, right? So you try and measure, you get an idea how much they're eating per day. We want to make sure by the time they get to 60 days, we actually do feed intake tests. Make sure that they're eating at least 2 kgs a day, each calf. And you want to make sure the food is always clean and dry. If it's been messed on, take this away. So I'm digging at the bottom here, I'm finding a bit of wet food. You don't want to leave that in there. It's not moldy yet, but it will be if you leave it. So we take that out and maybe feed that to older animals. But the calves have got to have fresh, dry food all the time. That'll maximize the intakes, which will maximize growth, and it will minimize any sickness. You can now see that this group have almost completely lost interest in the feeder, and they're going over to eat, to drink, and they're quite relaxed. It's now safe to take away the feeder without them being nervous or without stressing them, and there'll be no cross-suckling. Simply take it away, they're happy and relaxed, off you go. Once you've finished feeding the milk, the calves generally dirty the area just after feeding, and so now that they're relaxed, they're all chilled, it's time to give them a fresh piece of grass and a clean area for the rest of the day. As you can see, once we've moved them, they'll often want a fresh nibble of grass, and I believe this really helps in stimulating the rumen and to help develop the calf generally. It's a natural behavior. They walk as a group. The other beauty is, as I pushed it, I just keep an eye and see if any of the calves aren't keeping up with the herd, and obviously then I would check and see if there's something wrong with it. So it forces you, or it just makes it simple to observe the health of the animals every time you move. The other thing is that all I had to do was push the pen, rather than mucking out as in a normal system where I'd have to take out all the bedding. The bedding's expensive, and no one wants to do mucking out. It's a lot easier just to push a pen 3 meters along.